So glad you're back with us for another Gold Nugget segment. My special guest today, Bill Murphy from the Gold Antitrust Association, as well as La Metropole Cafe. Today's special guest from the Gold Antitrust Association, Gata. Welcome back, Bill.
Good to be back.
Wanted to see if we could start off here by recapping your testimony this year before the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. The chairman requested specific examples of market manipulation, and I wonder if you could recap and give folks an idea of what's been happening here.
I gave a general recap of some of the stuff we uncovered over a decade, and went in specifically into two major shorts, HSBC and JP Morgan Chase, and a fellow named Andrew McGuire was feeding them information via emails of how Morgan was manipulating the market and giving signals to everyone else when to sell, and then the market would collapse. And the CFTC had these emails in advance, and he thought he was going to be able to testify, and they turned him down. And then so he gave the information to myself via one of our board of directors, Adrian Douglas, and I read it in a surprise statement, which they had our other statement in advance, and it was quite a stunning revelation, and that part of my testimony was allowed to be heard. My specific testimony was taken off the TV webcast all over the world. I was the only one to do so, and then Andrew McGuire himself and his wife were hit by a car the next day and almost killed. So it was quite an eventful couple of days. In
fact, I think police actually had to chase down the hit-and-run vehicle. So
that's right.
It was really quite something.
It was a helicopter chase. It was quite like out of a James Bond movie or something.
Has there been any follow-up here? Has there been any further news regarding the McGuire testimony as well as your own?
No, although there's something I really can't get into right now, but we're expecting a bombshell sometime early next week, and so stay tuned for that one.
Well, let's move on to the general precious metals markets. You know, since gold found support above the four-digit level, it hasn't looked back. Many top analysts now calling $1,300, $1,400 as soon as this year. James Turk, who's been right on the money many times, thinks it could go much higher. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I guess I'm always bullish. But the gold cartel, as we call them, they're in big trouble. They're running out of enough available central bank gold to keep the price down. They could bomb the market like they just did. They just came out with an announcement about a BIS, Bank for International Settlements, gold swap with some other banks, and nobody, typical in the gold market, nobody can figure out what has been done with this gold, but I suspect it's already gone and has been filtered into the market, and all the signs point to much, much higher prices, and I think James Turk will be right, and by the end of this year, you're going to see prices in gold well north of $1,500 per ounce, and silver above $25 per ounce.
Gold has never closed lower in almost 10 years, I believe now. Even if we only saw, say, 10, 15, 20% per year, those numbers start to add up quickly when you get north of the four-digit point. So I think $1,500 is a pretty conservative target. And I wonder if we could move on to another interesting area that GATA has been working on, government records on gold reserves. You know, GATA requested from the Fed and the Treasury, thanks to the Federal Freedom of Information Act, the United States gold reserves. And as I understand it, there hasn't been an audit there in over 50 years.
No audit since the Eisenhower administration, and how it all started, President Obama said he wanted greater transparency with his government, so under the Freedom of Information Act, we requested to the Fed about any gold swaps operations, since we found the words mentioned in minutes over the past number of years. And they came back, Kevin Warsh, one of their top people, came back and told us that, no, we're not entitled to have that information, that is secret. And it's exempt. They're exempt from telling us the truth. And as Americans, we feel it's our goal. You know, gold's just sitting there, 8,133.5 tons supposedly sitting in our vaults. What is there not to tell us about? And it's so ridiculous. So we decided to take them to district court and sue them for the information. And we think there's a chance we might get someplace because Bloomberg has won a case. It's now on appeal, a similar Freedom of Information Act suit.
I think there's another interesting aspect or piece to this puzzle, the gold swapping or gold swaps. You know, a lot of the central banks have been involved with this process for some time, and there's concern that perhaps our government has been involved with gold swapping. Why don't you tell folks more about this?
They claim that all our gold just sitting there, then what is there not to tell us? It's just a very mysterious situation, and that's the way they want it. That's the way they keep it. And my colleague Chris Powell would say they'd rather talk about our nuclear secrets than tell the public what's going on with U.S. gold.
I wonder if we could shift gears a bit over to another important precious metal, and that's, of course, silver. AG has not been part of the American gold reserves. Now, as I understand it, we ran out in the past few decades after having a strategic stockpile of as high as 1 billion ounces, if I have my numbers correct. Well, we were sort of the envy of the world. Well, apparently that is now gone, and the U.S. Mint, they actually have to purchase it on the open market.
Well, yeah, the silver is very hard to figure out because it's just the way it is, and we feel that they can't manipulate the gold market without the silver market, and so that's what they do in silver. But where do they get the silver to do it? It's a bit mysterious, to be honest with you. We think it could come, some of it from the ETFs, it can come from just the London paper market. However, the key point for your listeners may be that there's been a lot of shenanigans in silver. We think it's way too short, that there's liable to be defaults coming, that they won't be able to make the deliveries, and look for the price of silver to absolutely go bonkers sometime this year.
You know, way back in 1980, 30 years ago, that year was a really tough year, at least the second half of it, for precious metals investors. And every time gold or silver moves higher, well, people sort of hearken back to what looks like a bubble, at least in the charts. But, looking at these long-term charts, I don't see anything that resembles a bubble this time around. It looks like a solid uptrend, similar to what we saw in the S&P and the Dow during the 80s and 90s. I mean, could we be looking at a good decade ahead for gold and silver?
Oh, absolutely, Chris. If anything, I'm just stunned by the terrible sentiment, lack of interest in gold and silver. A lot of the websites are dead. There's no interest in some of the shares. There's no real excitement yet at all. And as a matter of fact, it's commonly said on CNBC that by some of the commentators that if gold were to keep pace with inflation, it would be $2,300 an ounce. And they say, well, it's not such a great investment. Well, God says the reason it's not $2,300 an ounce, if it kept pace with inflation, is because of the gold cartel and what they've done. So when you're looking at $1,200 gold, I mean, just to keep pace with inflation, it's got to double. So we're just getting started in this thing, and there's very little signs of a mania or a bubble. As a matter of fact, it's just the reverse. It's like a rubber ball that's been kept underwater just waiting to burst higher. So the real excitement is coming down the road, and for many, many years ago, it was my opinion, gold would need a 3,000 to 5,000 price to clear the market, and it could be much higher.
All right, sir. Well, as we wrap up this discussion here, for those who'd like to find out more on the Gold Antitrust Association or La Metropole Cafe, please help direct their web browsers.
Yeah, it's www.gada.org. Chris Powell, my terrific colleague, sends out information all the time, and people can sign up at La Metropole Cafe for a 2-week free trial and see if that's of interest to them.
All right, Bill. Well, as always, I want to thank you for joining us on the program today, and have yourself a profitable week ahead.
Thank you, Chris.